Does Nintendo listen to fans? This is something I see discussed quite a bit online, and it's usually from a place of like, oh, they don't listen to fans, we don't get Star Fox, we don't get F-Zero, we don't get Kid Icarus. But I feel like after the past several Nintendo Directs, it's kind of undeniable that Nintendo is not only listening to fans, but listening to fans like very closely. Let's talk about it. Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today I wanted to tackle this topic because I made a tweet back when the Directs happened, just being like, I don't want to ever hear anybody say Nintendo doesn't listen to fans again, and I got a lot of responses, predictably so, being like, oh, well, what about this franchise? What about this franchise? Nintendo doesn't listen to fans because they don't bring back this niche thing, and I feel like I said, I feel like after the past couple of Nintendo Directs, it is so obvious that they listen to fans, and it goes back even further than that, right? But, from the Wii and DS era through to the Wii U, that's where Nintendo was cocky, and I feel like they weren't really listening to us at all. They were kind of just telling us, like, hey, this is the game we're making, you're gonna like it. Which I think is why a lot of those games felt very samey, very safe. I mean, they're great games, almost all of them, obviously Amiibo Festival size exceptions exist, but like, Tropical Freeze, great game. Yoshi's Woolly World, great game. Something like Kirby and the Rainbow Curse is a good game, but it's like safe, right? Like, a lot of the games they were releasing were very safe, and I think Nintendo just felt very comfortable in what they were doing during that time frame, whereas now with the Switch, obviously after the failure of the Wii U, they kind of needed to actually take a step back and evaluate what makes their games good and what makes fans excited, and I feel like they've done an exceptional job of that this generation, and that's what I wanted to mainly focus on today, because if you look at, I would say, starting in, every year has an example, but like really starting in 2021, and I always talk about this lineup of games from October 2021 to really like, honestly, the end of 2023 as one of the best stretches of first-party software from Nintendo or really any other publisher ever. They were just releasing nonstop games that were very high quality, but also a lot of games that people have been requesting for a long time. And it all started with Metroid Dread. I don't think people that don't play Metroid understand how big of a deal that is. I saw some people on Twitter the other day talking about whether or not the Metroid Dread reveal was as big of a deal as the Metroid Prime 4 Beyond gameplay reveal we got the other day. And as excited as I am for Prime 4 Beyond, I don't even think it's close. Nintendo did not need to make Metroid Dread, but that is one of the most, requested things of all time. Metroid Dread is a myth. That is an urban legend. You would never predict Metroid Dread to pop up in a Nintendo Direct, even though, at that time we were kind of maybe expecting a new 2D Metroid game from Mercury Steam. No one would have expected Metroid Dread. They did not need to call that game Metroid Dread. And for those out of the loop, Nintendo had announced a game called Metroid Dread for the Nintendo DS. So calling it Metroid Dread was pure fan service. That was purely them listening to what Metroid fans want, and that was just pure fan fiction. I cannot believe that happened, even them calling it Metroid 5 first and then calling it Metroid Dread. Just an absolute masterclass reveal and a masterpiece of a game. I love Metroid Dread. That game didn't need to exist. Nintendo surely made money on it, but Metroid as a whole, honestly, I would equate to being a franchise that Nintendo only makes because they know their hardcore fans really care about it. They could be allocating those resources anywhere else, but no, they keep making Metroid games, even if there was a down period in the early 2010s. They've always cared about Metroid, I would say almost as much as the fans have, which is just really cool to see. But beyond that, we saw them take a lot of care with stuff like Kirby and Forgotten Land, right? That was a game that people have been requesting for decades, a big 3D Kirby game. We got it. And then especially recently with all of these remakes, remasters, re-releases, whatever you want to call it, for the Mario franchise, I think this is where it's truly just indisputable. Super Mario RPG sold very well. I'm sure they're very happy with how that game did. That is, once again, kind of like Metroid Dread, pure fan fiction. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, pure fan fiction. In an era of the Wii and Wii U where Nintendo, once again, was kind of telling us hey, this is what we're doing, you're gonna have to deal with it. Starting with Super Paper Mario into Sticker Star into Color Splash into Origami King, they did not care what the fans thought. They finally care what the fans think and are actually taking that feedback and listening to make their games better, which is why we're seeing Mario RPG remade, we're seeing Thousand Year Door, and now, out of nowhere, a game I don't think anybody was expecting, Mario and Luigi's coming back. I don't think anybody would have expected that. We're getting a Zelda game where you play a Zelda. That's been a very much requested thing for a decade now, ever since that Breath of the Wild reveal trailer, where a lot of people for some reason thought that Link was a girl. Playable Zelda is that is the definition of fans have wanted this. We're gonna listen and give you a game where you play as Zelda. But it's funny because despite all of these things, despite getting another code and a new Endless Ocean games that aren't gonna sell very well, I still see the sentiment that Nintendo doesn't care about their fans, they don't care about their legacy, and they don't care about these old franchises, right? Which I just find so baffling. Now, to be fair, a lot of those recent examples are Mario games, but we're getting another code. We're getting Endless Ocean, like I said. We got F-Zero 99, which isn't entirely like a new game. Obviously, it's very much based on the SNES F-Zero game, of course, but that was still a new F-Zero game, like, released, technically. So there's obviously intention with that franchise to keep it going. So I see all of these things and I'm like, well, it's really only a matter of time then before they get down the list to a new Punch-Out game or a new Kid Icarus game or even just, you know, a remake of these games, right? But I see so many people being like, well, there's all these games, but what about Star Fox? What about proper F-Zero game? What about Ice Climber? It's like, just wait. What about Tomodachi Life? Just wait. I don't understand how you can look at Nintendo's strategy this generation and the games they've released and truly think to yourself, oh, Star Fox is dead. We are absolutely getting a new Star Fox game. We will absolutely get Kid Icarus Uprising. We will absolutely get a new F-Zero game. You just need to give them time to cook. Game development takes time. I don't know if people don't understand that, but it takes time. And if we're getting all of these niche games, if we're getting Famicom Detective Club, if we're getting a new Pokemon Snap, once again, another very much requested game from fans that we got back in 2021, yeah, I think there is a good chance that eventually, I think it's possible that we see like a remake of Earthbound or something. Like, I think people just need to have a little bit more patience because the reality is when you look at what Nintendo has done for the past, 7-8 years, it's been so clearly targeted at Nintendo fans, which is great, and it's why I think I love the Switch so much, because the library, the software library, is so diverse. There's so much variety in what you can play. There's a lot of Mario, especially in these past couple of years, but when you actually look at every Nintendo franchise and what has been represented well on Switch, there's very few things that are missing, right? We're missing a proper Star Fox game. We're missing Kid Icarus. I guess you can say we're missing a new F-Zero game, like a truly new from-the-ground-up F-Zero game. We're missing a new 2D Donkey Kong game. But just from that last Direct, I mean, we got a new Mario and Luigi game. We got a new 2D Zelda game, which was one of the biggest holdouts, I would say, for me personally. So we're getting that now. And then when you look to the future, I mean, this isn't necessarily because of Nintendo, although I imagine they are playing a part in this. The Pokemon Company is taking 2 years off for the very first time. Because Scarlet and Violet, admittedly, were very broken games at release, they've never taken 2 years off from releasing a Pokemon game. That has never happened. But because the outcry of fans was so loud when Scarlet and Violet released, they're taking the time to make Legends ZA, hopefully, a much more polished game, a much better game, and I can't wait for that. Because this is unprecedented levels of them taking feedback and listening to fans when it comes to these major Nintendo properties, and I just think that's such an exciting thing that's happening with this generation of Nintendo, where you look back to the Wii U, you look back to the 3DS, and while I love those libraries and a lot of those games are very good, they were very safe. We saw the return of a proper open sandbox 3D Mario this generation. We saw the revival of a Mario Party to be good. For so long, Mario Party was just hated on. And to be fair, people still feel a little kind of 50-50 on Super Mario Party, but Mario Party Superstars and Jamboree coming out later this year, well, in the case of Mario Party Superstars, fantastic, and Jamboree looks very good. Like, we're seeing all of these franchises that for a long time were very safe or even lean towards being kind of like crummy, like not that great. We're seeing them revitalized to this new standard of quality, which I feel like is a direct result of them listening to fans. I think the next Paper Mario game, you can put money on it being more like Thousand Year Door. I would not have said that a year or two ago, but now that we're seeing how they're treating Mario RPGs, I think it's unbelievable to think that they would release another game like Origami King, frankly. Unless Thousand Year Door ends up bombing sales-wise, but I don't really think that's going to be the case. I think we'll get a Mario RPG sequel. I feel like it's a great time to be a Nintendo fan because every single franchise they have either has been treated very well this generation or, I imagine, is about to be treated very well. I made a video on a Wednesday talking about Donkey Kong, and yeah, that is one of the major franchises we haven't seen a new entry in this console generation. I think we will see that on the Switch too. I think we will see a proper return to form, a new Donkey Kong game, be that 2D or 3D. I think we could see a new Golden Sun. Golden Sun is one of my favorite Nintendo IP that is just kind of forgotten to time. I think we'll get a new one of those, or at least a remake. If we're getting another Code in Endless Ocean, I think it's unimaginable that we wouldn't get a Golden Sun, frankly. I'm going to let them cook. I'm going to let them take their time, but, you know, people keep complaining about Twilight Princess and Wind Waker not coming over to the Switch. Just wait. Do you really think they're not going to bring those games to the Switch? Like, it's going to happen. Kid Icarus Uprising, another one of my favorite 3DS games, totally that's going to happen. At some point, we will see that. So, I just, you know, to kind of sum it all up here, I take issue with people saying that Nintendo doesn't listen to fans, especially now. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you could have made the argument that a lot of their franchises were laying dormant, but I think at this point, Nintendo listens to their fan base more than any other publisher. I think that much is very clear, and it's why I like being a Nintendo fan, because there's just so much great stuff releasing every single year. 2024, as someone who doesn't really care about Paper Mario, I gotta be honest, this year was looking kind of like a wash for me. But now we're getting this awesome looking new 2D Zelda game, we're getting this new Mario and Luigi game, and there's so much to be excited for in the horizon. It's just a good time to be a Nintendo fan, basically, is what I'm saying. And I feel like people need to be a little bit more, I'm not saying be grateful to the billion-dollar corporation or whatever, but like, I don't know, man. We have it pretty good right now as Nintendo fans. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. How are you feeling? Do you think Nintendo listens to their fans when it comes to the games they release? Because I think at this point, for me personally, I think it's undisputable. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'd love to get a conversation going. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all of that stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. And until next time, folks, peace.